A temple complex in Turkey predates Stonehenge by a staggering 6,000 years. This is Göbekli Tepe, a site so ancient and mysterious it forces a complete rewrite of human history. Why would nomadic hunter-gatherers, people we believed lived simple lives, build something so monumental and sophisticated? By the end of this exploration, you will see the entire timeline of civilization in a radical new light. We will uncover how it was discovered, decipher the strange symbols carved into its pillars, and confront the possibility that a forgotten cosmic event inspired its creation. What does it truly take for a society to become complex? Sometimes the greatest mysteries are hidden in plain sight. For decades, the shepherds who roamed the hills of southeastern Turkey noticed strange, large stones jutting from the earth. They called the place Göbekli Tepe, which simply means Potbelly Hill. In 1963, an archaeological survey team passed through and saw these same stones. They noted the site but mistakenly identified it as a medieval cemetery, a place of little significance, and so the hill kept its secret for another 30 years. The true breakthrough came in 1994, when a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt decided to revisit the area. As he walked the slope, his trained eyes saw what others had overlooked. The ground was not just scattered with rocks, it was littered with countless flint chips, the unmistakable debris from ancient toolmaking. In that moment, Schmidt knew. He was not standing on a simple hilltop, he was standing on the ruins of something monumental. His team began to dig, and what they unearthed defied all expectation. They found not graves but the tops of enormous T-shaped limestone pillars arranged in great stone circles. These were not natural formations. They were masterfully carved, weighing tens of tons each, and they had been intentionally buried, sealed under a mountain of soil for thousands of years. This deliberate act of preservation is what saved Göbekli Tepe for us today. The immediate implication was staggering. This colossal structure was built over 11,000 years ago, a time when humans were supposedly simple hunter-gatherers, living hand-to-mouth in small, mobile bands. The established story was that only after humans settled down and invented farming did they have the resources, the organization, and the reason to build such permanent, awe-inspiring monuments. Göbekli Tepe turned that logic completely upside down. Here was proof that a complex society, capable of a massive, coordinated building project, existed long before the first farm was ever planted. This was not just a new discovery, it was a revolution in our understanding of human history, all sparked by a perceptive archaeologist and a field of forgotten flint chips. So how do we know for certain just how old this place really is? The answer lies in a scientific process called radiocarbon dating. It works by measuring the remaining amount of a radioactive form of carbon, carbon-14, found in ancient organic material. Think of it as a cosmic clock ticking down inside every piece of charcoal, bone, or seed. When an organism dies, it stops absorbing new carbon-14, and the existing amount begins to decay at a steady, predictable rate. By measuring how much is left, scientists can calculate how long ago that organism died. At Göbekli Tepe, researchers took samples of charcoal and bone fragments that were deliberately placed in the soil used to fill the enclosures. The results from these tests were unequivocal. The oldest structures were built around 9,600 years before the Common Era. That means the first stones were raised over 11,500 years ago. Let that number sink in for a moment. This temple complex is not just a little older than we thought. It predates the invention of writing by about 6,000 years. It is older than the wheel, older than the pyramids of Egypt by a staggering 7 millennia. This timeline places Göbekli Tepe squarely in what archaeologists call the pre-pottery Neolithic period, a time when humanity was supposedly composed of small, nomadic groups, constantly on the move in search of food. According to the old story, these people simply did not have the time, the manpower, or the social structure to undertake a project of this magnitude. They were not supposed to be capable of quarrying, transporting, and erecting 20-ton pillars of stone, or of carving them with intricate artistry. The paradigm has been shattered. The established sequence of events where farming led to villages which led to temples and social hierarchy is now in ruins. A complex society with a shared vision and a powerful driving force clearly came first. This forces a profound and haunting question. If it was not the surplus of agriculture that brought people together, what did? What powerful belief, what shared spiritual need was so compelling that it motivated hunter-gatherers to achieve the seemingly impossible? With its revolutionary age confirmed beyond any doubt, the mystery only deepens. How exactly did they build it? The physical reality of Göbekli Tepe is almost incomprehensible. To stand before one of its central pillars is to confront a slab of limestone taller than a modern giraffe and heavier than 2 full-grown elephants. These are not mere standing stones, they are colossal T-shaped monoliths, each one quarried from the solid bedrock of a nearby plateau, then moved somehow up to the summit of the hill. The engineering challenge is staggering. Without draft animals, without the wheel, and without metal tools, these people had to extract 10 and 20-ton blocks of stone. They likely used stone hammers and fire to fracture the limestone, then painstakingly shaped it using flint chisels. Imagine the soundscape of that endeavor, the relentless percussion of stone on stone echoing across the valley for generations. Once freed, the true test began. How do you move a 20-ton pillar hundreds of meters and then stand it upright in a precisely dug socket? The most plausible theory involves a combination of log rollers, rope made from plant fibers, and the brute force of hundreds of people pulling in unison. This was a monumental act of communal effort, a coordinated ballet of human muscle and ingenuity. This scale of labor shatters the old image of small, scattered bands of hunter-gatherers. To accomplish this, they needed more than just strong backs. They needed architects, they needed foremen, they needed a society organized enough to feed and house a large workforce, perhaps for months at a time. This implies a social hierarchy, a chain of command where someone's vision was so compelling that everyone else agreed to make it real. That shared motivation is the true ghost in this machine. The sheer effort required to build Göbekli Tepe suggests its purpose was not practical but profoundly spiritual. The driving force was not hunger for food, but a hunger for meaning, a collective belief powerful enough to move mountains, or at least to carve them into pillars and raise them to the sky. And etched onto the surface of these very pillars is the language of that belief, a code of stone waiting to be read. These towering T-shaped pillars are far more than simple roof supports. Look closer and you begin to see the ghost of a human form. They have no faces to look upon, yet many are etched with long, thin arms that bend at the elbow, with hands meeting over where a stomach would be. Fingers are sometimes clearly defined, resting on a belt or a loincloth carved in relief. These are not just stones, they are stylized people, abstract ancestors, or perhaps gods frozen in limestone. The consistency is remarkable. From the oldest enclosure to the youngest, the same essential T-shape is repeated. This was not a fleeting artistic whim. It points to a powerful, standardized belief system that held sway across this region for centuries, perhaps even for millennia. Everyone who came to this place, from the first builders to the last, understood the meaning and power of this form. These silent, watchful figures form a community of stone, a gathering of powerful beings in a circle. But if these pillars are people, then what is the story they are trying to tell? The narrative is not written on their blank faces, but on the vibrant, chaotic menagerie of animals that swarm across their bodies. The pillars themselves may be the silent characters, but the creatures carved upon them are the active elements of the story. Foxes, scorpions, snakes, and birds of prey crawl and slither and fly across the limestone canvas. This is not random decoration. Each animal is rendered with stunning detail and clear intent, placed in specific positions on the pillar's body. A boar might be shown menacingly, its tusks prominent. A crane's long neck might gracefully follow the curve of the stone. These are more than just depictions of local wildlife, they are potent symbols. In a world without writing, this was the language of belief. Each creature likely held a specific meaning, representing a clan, a spiritual force, or a part of a foundational myth. The placements tell a story of interaction, of a relationship between the human-like pillar and the animal world. Perhaps these animals are companions to the ancestor, or challengers, or manifestations of their power. The stone becomes a sacred text, and every carving is a sentence in a forgotten epic. To understand why these pillars were built, we must learn to read this stone-born language. This symbolic menagerie carved into the pillars is our most direct window into the minds of the builders. Look closely, and you will see a world teeming with life and danger. Sleek foxes dart across the stone. A massive wild boar charges with formidable tusks. Slithering snakes coil around the edges, while elegant cranes stretch their long necks. High above, vultures spread their wings, and on the ground, scorpions raise their venomous tails. Even lions, the apex predators of that ancient landscape, are present, their power captured forever in limestone. The artistry is breathtaking. Each animal is rendered with an observant eye for anatomy and movement, a testament to a people who lived intimately within the natural world. But this was far more than an artistic showcase of local wildlife. Every creature was chosen with a purpose, placed with intention as part of a symbolic language. One compelling theory suggests these animals served as totems, representing the different clans or family groups who traveled from afar to gather at Göbekli Tepe. In this view, a pillar covered in foxes might be the sacred monument of the Fox clan, while a boar-centric pillar belonged to the Boar clan. The entire complex would then be a neutral, sacred ground where these distinct groups came together, their symbols side by side, to collaborate on a project that transcended their individual identities. This would explain the incredible manpower needed, a unification of many smaller groups for a common spiritual goal. Another interpretation sees these animals not as clan symbols, but as powerful spiritual guardians. They could be protective entities warding off evil forces from the sacred circle, or perhaps they are spirit guides depicted as companions to the human-like pillars, assisting these ancestor figures in a cosmic narrative we can no longer hear. The sheer number of dangerous animals is particularly telling. Why fill a sacred space with images of venomous snakes, deadly scorpions, and scavenging vultures? These were not the cuddly, benevolent creatures of a gentle faith. Their prevalence hints at a cosmology that acknowledged the harsh realities of life and death. The vulture, especially, is a powerful symbol of transition in many early cultures, not of evil but of purification, of consuming the dead to free the spirit. This suggests that themes of mortality, the afterlife, and the cycle of life were absolutely central to the beliefs enshrined here. The animals are not just decorations, they are the key characters in a lost story, a spiritual epic carved in stone for the ages. This obsession with the animal world and the spirit realm points to a society grappling with the biggest questions of existence, and it raises a startling possibility that their entire worldview and the very impetus to build this temple might have been written in the stars above them. Of all the carvings at Göbekli Tepe, one pillar in particular holds a story that could rewrite our understanding of prehistory. Known as Pillar 43 or the Vulture stone, its surface is a chaotic and densely packed scene that stands apart from the others. It is not a simple collection of animals but a complex narrative frozen in time. A large, dominant vulture stretches across the stone, its wings outspread. Below it, a scorpion raises its tail with clear menace. Most strikingly, there is a headless human figure, a chilling and unambiguous depiction. Scattered around these central characters are a series of strange, abstract symbols, including a distinct circle and a shape that looks remarkably like a modern handbag. To the modern eye, it is a bewildering puzzle. But what if this is not just a random mythological scene? What if it is a precise record of an actual event, a prehistoric news bulletin carved in stone? This is the radical theory put forward by researchers like Martin Sweatman. He and others propose that the animals and symbols on the vulture stone are not just spiritual icons, but representations of constellations in the night sky. In this interpretation, the scorpion represents the constellation Scorpius, the bird corresponds to Sagittarius, the circle is the sun. This celestial map, they argue, tells a specific and terrifying story. According to this reading, the arrangement of symbols on Pillar 43 depicts the sky as it would have appeared around 10,950 years before the Common Era. And it points directly to a catastrophic event, a swarm of comet fragments striking the Earth. This time frame aligns with a known period of abrupt climate change called the Younger Dryas, a sudden 1,300-year return to Ice Age conditions that would have devastated the environment and the species living in it, including many large mammals like mammoths. The implications of this are staggering. If correct, it means the builders of Göbekli Tepe were not just spiritual visionaries but sophisticated astronomers. They possessed the knowledge to track the stars with precision and the ingenuity to encode a warning or a memorial of a world-shattering event into the very foundation of their temple. The headless man could symbolize the massive loss of human life that followed such a disaster. This single pillar transforms from a piece of religious art into a potential historical document, a testimony from survivors of a cosmic catastrophe that nearly wiped them out. It suggests that civilization, or at least a complex society, did not emerge slowly from a state of simplicity, but was forged in the fires of a desperate struggle for survival against a changing world. The temple then becomes more than a place of worship. It becomes a monument to resilience, a plea to the heavens, and a stark reminder of a trauma so profound it had to be carved in stone for all eternity. But why, after creating this masterpiece, did these people ultimately choose to bury their entire temple under a mountain of earth? So what was this place truly for? With no signs of villages, houses, or even hearths for daily living, Göbekli Tepe was clearly not a town. It stands alone on the hill, a grand structure in a world of temporary camps. The most compelling idea is that this was the world's first temple, a regional cult center of profound spiritual importance. Imagine nomadic groups scattered across the landscape, converging on this sacred hill at specific times of the year. They would gather within these stone circles, surrounded by the towering, ancestor-like pillars and the watchful eyes of carved beasts. The atmosphere would have been charged with ritual, the air thick with the smoke of communal feasts, the sound of chanting and drumming echoing from the stone walls. This was a place of shared belief where people reaffirmed their connection to the spirit world and to each other, but the spiritual and the practical were deeply intertwined here. The very act of gathering so many people created a unique social engine. It became a central hub where knowledge was exchanged, where new flint knapping techniques could be shared, where stories and genes could mingle. Young people from different clans could meet, forming alliances that strengthened the wider social network. This regular, large-scale cooperation may have been the very crucible that forged the idea of domestication. The need to feed hundreds of ritual participants could have spurred the first deliberate cultivation of wild grasses like wheat, which grew naturally in the surrounding hills. In this light, the temple did not come after farming, it invented it. The site's potential as an observatory adds another layer of genius. Certain pillars seem to align with celestial events, like the rising of specific stars. If the carvings are indeed a sky map, as the Vulture stone suggests, then tracking the heavens was part of their core purpose. This was not just a temple rooted in the earth, but one connected to the cosmos. Its true function, then, resists a single label. Göbekli Tepe was all of these things at once: a cathedral, a scientific observatory, and a social convention center. It was the epicenter where the spiritual, the astronomical, and the social collided, sparking the cultural Big Bang that would eventually give rise to the world we know. And this makes its final chapter all the more mysterious. Why would such a pivotal place, after centuries of use, be deliberately and carefully buried? This final act of entombment is perhaps the site's greatest riddle. Around 8,000 years before the Common Era, after 2 millennia of continuous use, the people of Göbekli Tepe did not simply walk away from their temple. They undertook one last colossal project. They gathered vast quantities of earth, stone chips, and animal bones, and they carefully, methodically, buried every single stone circle. They filled the enclosures to the brim, sealing the massive pillars and their intricate carvings in a time capsule of soil. This was not an act of destruction or disdain. It was a deliberate, painstaking process of preservation. So why would they go to such incredible lengths only to hide their masterpiece? One compelling theory is that this was a sacred retirement. The temple had served its purpose for generations, but beliefs were evolving, or perhaps the people who understood its deepest secrets were gone. Burying the site could have been the ultimate act of reverence, a way to lay the sacred ground to rest with honor, protecting its spiritual power from desecration or decay. It was a ritual conclusion, a funeral for a temple. Yet another possibility is more pragmatic. The world was changing rapidly, agriculture was spreading, and new societies with different ideologies were emerging. Perhaps the old ways represented by the animal totems and T-shaped pillars were becoming dangerous, seen as a threat by a new order. Burying Göbekli Tepe might have been a desperate act of protection, a way to hide the old gods from the eyes of a new world. They chose to conceal their heart, to save it from being torn down. The very fact that they took the time to do this instead of just toppling the stones speaks volumes. It tells us that even as they sealed it away, they held a profound respect for what they were leaving behind. They ensured its secrets would lie dormant, waiting in the dark for a future civilization to uncover and wonder at the world we lost. The established timeline of civilization has always been a simple, logical progression. First, humans discovered farming, which created a food surplus. This surplus allowed people to settle in villages, and with settled life came specialization, social hierarchy, and finally, the spare time and resources to build monuments and develop complex religion. Göbekli Tepe shatters this sequence. Here, the grandest monument of all comes first, built by people who were, according to the old model, not even supposed to be capable of such a feat. This paradox has given rise to a revolutionary idea, often called the Cathedral Theory. What if the temple itself was the engine of change? Imagine the logistical challenge. Gathering hundreds, perhaps thousands, of workers for seasonal construction projects required feeding them. Hunter-gatherers living off the land would have quickly exhausted the immediate local resources. The need to sustain a large, non-food producing labor force at Göbekli Tepe could have provided the ultimate incentive for a more reliable food source. And the solution was literally at their feet. The surrounding hills were the native home of wild einkorn wheat, the very ancestor of one of the first domesticated crops. The constant demand for food could have spurred the first deliberate experiments in cultivation. Instead of farming leading to temples, the building of the temple may have demanded the invention of farming. This turns our understanding of the Neolithic revolution completely upside down. It suggests that what we call civilization, with all its social complexity, was not born from a practical need for more food, but from a shared spiritual vision. The human impulse to connect with something greater than themselves, to build a sacred space for collective ritual, may have been the spark that ignited the entire chain of events leading to the modern world. It forces us to reconsider a fundamental question. Did we settle down to worship, or did we learn to worship because we settled down? At Göbekli Tepe, the stones whisper that belief came first. But the mystery of Göbekli Tepe is not confined to its towering pillars. Recent excavations have unearthed a more chilling and intimate dimension to this sacred place, one that speaks directly to the people who built it. Archaeologists have discovered a collection of human skulls, but these are not ordinary remains. They have been deliberately and meticulously modified, carved with deep, precise grooves running across the bone. These are not the marks of violence, but of careful craftsmanship. The grooves were likely designed to hold cords, allowing the skulls to be suspended from poles or pillars, perhaps even worn during ceremonies. This grisly practice points to what scholars call a skull cult, a form of ancestor veneration that was emerging across the Neolithic world. The belief was that the skull of a powerful or revered elder held their spiritual essence. By curating and displaying these bones, the living could maintain a tangible connection to the wisdom and protection of their ancestors. This discovery powerfully links Göbekli Tepe to a broader spiritual tradition seen throughout the ancient Levant, revealing a shared belief system where death was not an end, but a transformation into a potent spiritual force. Suddenly, the silent, T-shaped pillars take on a new and profound meaning. If the community was so focused on honoring their ancestors through their actual skulls, then these colossal stone figures almost certainly represent those same venerated forebears. They are not abstract gods, but stone embodiments of lineage and memory, giant watchers presiding over the rituals of their descendants. The entire complex transforms into a sacred gathering of the clan, where the living performed ceremonies surrounded by the preserved skulls of the recent dead and the monumental stone forms of the ancient dead. This grisly evidence adds a deeply human, emotional layer to the enigma. It was not just a temple for nameless gods, but a home for remembered ancestors, a place where the community reinforced its identity across generations. The power of this belief was so strong it motivated them to carve the very bedrock of their world, and it raises one final, haunting question about the legacy they left behind. What if this revolutionary site, which forced us to rewrite history, was not alone? To grasp the sheer anomaly of Göbekli Tepe, we must place it on the same map as its more famous contemporaries. Consider the ancient city of Jericho, which flourished thousands of years later. Jericho is renowned for its massive stone wall and formidable tower, testaments to a society concerned with defense and community living. Yet Jericho was, at its heart, a town. People lived, worked, and died within its walls. Similarly, Çatalhöyük, another celebrated Neolithic settlement, was a dense honeycomb of mud brick houses, its walls adorned with vibrant paintings and its floors hiding the bones of the dead beneath them. It was a place of profound domesticity and art. Göbekli Tepe is utterly different. It shows no signs of permanent habitation, no hearths for cooking, no houses for sleeping. It was not a place for the living to reside, but a place for the living to gather, purely for a purpose beyond daily survival. This makes it a unique category of site, one dedicated entirely to the monumental and the spiritual. Even the later, awe-inspiring stone circles of Stonehenge were built by societies that had been farming for centuries. They had established villages, a stable food surplus, and a hierarchical social structure. The builders of Stonehenge were the heirs to an agricultural tradition. The builders of Göbekli Tepe were its potential inventors. This is the core of the mystery. Every other major site we point to fits within a logical progression. They are the products of settled farming societies. Göbekli Tepe stands alone, a magnificent and precocious blueprint for civilization created by people who were, by every conventional standard, not yet civilized. It is not merely older, it is fundamentally other. Its peerless nature forces a global rethinking of prehistory, suggesting that the spark of complex society did not catch flame in one place and then spread, but flickered to life independently, and perhaps more than once in the deep, forgotten chapters of our past. The identity of the builders is the human heart of this mystery. Who were these prehistoric architects who achieved the impossible? They were pre-pottery Neolithic people, nomadic hunter-gatherers who likely lived in small, seasonal camps scattered across the landscape. Their daily reality was one of constant movement, tracking herds of gazelle and gathering wild plants. By every standard definition, they should not have possessed the means or the motive for such a staggering project. Yet they clearly did. This is the central paradox of Göbekli Tepe. The evidence points to a society of remarkable social cohesion. To quarry, transport, and erect these pillars required the synchronized labor of hundreds of people, a workforce that had to be fed, housed, and directed for months, perhaps even years at a time. This was not a sporadic community effort. It was a sustained, multi-generational enterprise, a project that would have outlived every single person who laid the first stone. Such an undertaking is unthinkable without a powerful, unifying social glue. That binding force was almost certainly a shared spiritual vision, orchestrated by a sophisticated leadership. This was not a society of equals in the sense we might imagine. There must have been master architects who conceived the grand design, foremen who directed the teams of laborers, and ritual specialists, a priestly class who interpreted the will of the ancestors and the messages in the stars. The consistency of the T-shaped pillars and the intricate animal carvings across all the enclosures, built over centuries, is a testament to this. It reveals a strict adherence to a symbolic code, a set of rules so powerful that it remained unchanged for generations. This was not a free-for-all of artistic expression. It was a disciplined, sacred language in stone, carefully supervised and passed down. These people were not the simple, brutish cavemen of outdated cartoons. They were intelligent, organized, and spiritually profound. Their cultural life was rich with meaning, a complex tapestry woven from myth, astronomy, and a deep reverence for their ancestors. They possessed a level of abstract thought and long-term planning that rivals any modern project. The true marvel is not just the stones they raised, but the invisible society they built to raise them. This sophisticated social machine, however, did not appear out of thin air. It must have had a precursor, a developmental stage that has remained completely invisible to us. The true scale of these gatherings is written not in the stone but in the soil. Archaeologists sifting through the fill that buried the temples have uncovered a staggering secret, a layer of history made of bone. Thousands upon thousands of animal bones from massive, now extinct aurochs, from swift gazelle and from wild sheep lie mixed with the stone chips and earth. This was not the refuse of daily meals. The bones tell a story of epic, communal feasting on a scale that is difficult to comprehend. Imagine the scene after a pillar was successfully raised. The air would be thick with the smell of roasting meat, the sound of celebration, the sight of hundreds of people sharing in a bounty that rewarded their immense effort. This feasting was far more than just a meal. It was the social glue that held the entire monumental project together. For a nomadic hunter-gatherer, participating in such a build meant time away from your own family's food quest. The promise of a massive, protein-rich feast at the temple site was a powerful incentive, a tangible reward for your back-breaking labor. It transformed work into a shared celebration. These events reinforced social bonds between different clans, the very groups represented by the animal totems on the pillars. Sharing food created a sense of shared identity and a common purpose that transcended individual family ties. It was here, in the firelight of these communal meals, that a scattered population began to coalesce into something new, a society united by a grand vision. The organization required for these feasts itself reveals a sophisticated mind. Someone had to coordinate the hunters to take down enough aurochs to feed a small army. Others had to manage the butchery, the cooking pits, and the fair distribution of the meat. This was a complex logistical operation, a precursor to the administration that would later run the first cities. The leaders who could provide this bounty, who could turn a hilltop into a place of celebration and plenty, would have seen their authority and prestige grow immensely. The feasts were not just a consequence of the building, they were its essential fuel. They powered the human engine that moved the mountains of stone, season after season, generation after generation. This cycle of ritual, labor, and celebration became a self-perpetuating cultural machine, one that may have unknowingly set the stage for its own obsolescence. The very ground plan of Göbekli Tepe seems to whisper of a deeper connection to the cosmos. Beyond the dramatic storytelling of the Vulture stone, the architecture itself may have been a grand celestial clock. Researchers studying the orientation of the enclosures have found something remarkable. The central pillars in several of the oldest circles are not placed randomly. They appear to be deliberately aligned with the rising point of key stars, including the brilliant Sirius, and with the solstices, the longest and shortest days of the year. This is not a wild speculation, but a pattern emerging from the careful measurement of the stone's positions against the ancient sky. If this alignment was intentional, it transforms our understanding of the site's purpose. Göbekli Tepe would have been far more than a temple. It would have been a sophisticated observatory, a Neolithic calendar carved from the living rock. Imagine the practical power this knowledge held. For a society living intimately with nature, knowing the precise turning of the seasons was a matter of survival. The rising of a particular star could signal the start of the gazelle migration, telling the hunters when to prepare for the hunt. The solstice would mark a pivotal moment in the year, perhaps indicating when wild grains were ready for harvest or when it was time to move to winter camps. This was not abstract science, it was essential, life-giving information, but the tracking of the stars would have been deeply intertwined with their spiritual life. The arrival of a solstice would not just be a date on a calendar, it would be a sacred event, a time when the power of the cosmos was at its peak, demanding ritual and celebration. The temple would become the stage for these cosmic dramas, a place where the community could actively participate in the great cycles of the universe. This concept of a sacred space where heaven and earth meet is a cornerstone of nearly every major religion that followed. It seems this profound idea was born here on this Turkish hilltop over 11,000 years ago. The builders did not just look to the stars for stories of past catastrophes. They used them to navigate their present and future, embedding their entire world within a cosmic order. The heavens above did not just inspire the carvings, they may have dictated the very placement of every single pillar. Among the carved menagerie, one creature stands out through its sheer persistence: the fox. It appears again and again, etched into the pillars with a striking sense of purpose. You find foxes carved in relief, their slender bodies and bushy tails captured in elegant detail. On one particularly significant pillar, two foxes are shown facing each other, their bodies forming a symmetrical frame around the central T-shape, as if they are guardians of a sacred secret. This is not random placement. The fox is consistently given a position of importance, suggesting it held a unique and powerful meaning for the people who carved it. So what made this particular animal so spiritually significant? One compelling idea is that the fox served as a clan totem, a symbolic ancestor for one of the major groups that gathered here. If different clans were represented by different animals, the boar clan, the crane clan, then a pillar dominated by foxes might literally be the sacred post of the fox clan. Their repeated presence would signify that this group held a position of influence, perhaps providing the master architects or the ritual specialists who directed the work. The fox in this light is a badge of identity, a stone signature declaring a family's vital role in this grand endeavor. Yet the symbolism likely runs much deeper. Across global mythologies, the fox is a classic trickster, a clever and unpredictable figure that challenges the established order. In the belief system of Göbekli Tepe, the fox could have played a similar role, a cunning mediator between the human world and the spirit world, a being that could outwit dangers and navigate impossible paths. This trickster quality would have been immensely valuable in a spiritual context, providing a narrative for overcoming hardship and explaining the unpredictable nature of life and the cosmos. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that the fox was a psychopomp, a guide for the souls of the dead. Its depiction on the pillars, often in dynamic poses, could symbolize its role in leading the spirits of the departed through the perilous journey to the afterlife. This would perfectly complement the evidence of the modified skulls and the ancestor veneration practiced here. The stone pillars represent the ancestors themselves, and the fox, ever present beside them, is their faithful companion into the realm of the dead. This layered meaning transforms the carvings from simple symbols into a complex spiritual vocabulary. The fox is not just an animal, it is a character. It is a clan identity, a clever hero, and a soul guide all at once. Its persistent image invites us to see these pillars not as isolated artworks, but as interconnected pages of a single epic story. Each animal is a piece of a vast symbolic network, and the fox is one of its most prominent threads, leading us deeper into the lost worldview of the first temple builders. Among the carvings on the Vulture stone, one of the most puzzling details is a small, repeated shape that looks uncannily like a modern handbag. It is a simple form, a rectangle or semicircle with a curved handle on top. This is not a literal depiction of an animal or a person, but an abstract symbol, and its presence here is a profound mystery. What could this stylized bag possibly represent to the people of Göbekli Tepe over 11,000 years ago? The intrigue only deepens when you realize this is not an isolated image. This exact same handbag motif appears thousands of years later and thousands of miles away. You can find it held by winged genii in ancient Assyrian palace reliefs. You see it in the art of the Olmecs in Mesoamerica. It is carved into temple walls in Indonesia. This symbol seems to have traveled across oceans and centuries, appearing in cultures that, according to conventional history, should have had no contact with one another. So what are we to make of this? One compelling interpretation is that the handbag was not a physical object at all, but a symbol for something far more valuable than any item it could contain. It may have represented knowledge, wisdom, or spiritual insight carried from one place to another. Think of it as a portable vessel for sacred understanding, a concept so powerful it transcended language barriers. In this view, the figures carved on the pillar are not carrying a bag, but are custodians of a profound truth. Another theory suggests it was a standard measure of value, a symbolic representation of a fixed quantity of grain or other commodity, indicating that even at this incredibly early date, concepts of measurement and trade were being formalized in a symbolic language. Yet others see it as a cosmological symbol, with the rectangular base representing the solid, material earth and the arched handle representing the dome of the heavens. It becomes a portable model of the universe, a concept so fundamental it resonated across human cultures as they spread across the globe. The most haunting possibility is that its presence at Göbekli Tepe, one of its earliest known appearances, marks this place as a source. It suggests that a core set of spiritual concepts and symbols, a kind of primordial worldview, originated in this distant era and was carried outward by the descendants of these temple builders as they populated the world. The handbag is not just a curious shape, it is a ghost in the global machine of human culture, a faint but persistent echo from a lost age of shared understanding, connecting this lonely Turkish hilltop to the grand sweep of human history. The ground itself tells a story of visitors, not residents. Across the entire hilltop, archaeologists have found almost no traces of the daily rhythms that define a village. There are no foundations for permanent houses, no central hearths where families would have cooked their daily meals, no deep trash pits filled with the debris of domestic life. Even the dead are absent, with no burial grounds found in the immediate vicinity. This profound lack of domestic evidence paints a clear and compelling picture. Göbekli Tepe was not a place where people lived, it was a place they traveled to. This transforms our understanding of the site from a settlement into a destination. Think of it not as a town, but as a cathedral built in an empty field. Scattered bands of hunter-gatherers who normally lived in small, mobile family groups would have converged on this sacred hill at appointed times, perhaps guided by the very stars they tracked. They came from across the region, journeying for days or even weeks, drawn by a shared spiritual calling. We see this pattern, known as seasonal aggregation, in other hunter-gatherer societies. Indigenous groups in North America, for instance, would gather for annual bison hunts or potlatch ceremonies, but those gatherings left behind temporary campsites, not monumental architecture. Göbekli Tepe is in a category of its own. The scale of the construction implies a gathering of people so large and so coordinated that it created a temporary city of ritual participants, a city dedicated not to living but to believing. This was the Neolithic equivalent of a pilgrimage site. A family from the coast, identifying with the crane totem, would travel inland and meet a group from the northern plains who saw themselves in the spirit of the fox. At Göbekli Tepe, their symbols were carved side by side on the great pillars. Here, around the stone circles, they worked together, feasted together, and performed rituals that reinforced a common identity far larger than their individual clans. The temple was a sacred crossroads, a neutral ground where a regional culture was born. It forged connections between people who were otherwise separated by vast distances, creating a powerful social network united by a single, awe-inspiring purpose. This was the true function of the world's first temple, to build not just with stone, but with human connection itself. The dramatic theory of a comet impact ties the mystery of Göbekli Tepe to a global catastrophe. For over 1,000 years, starting around 12,900 years ago, the world plunged back into an ice age. This period is known as the Younger Dryas. It was a climatic U-turn of breathtaking speed and severity. Glaciers began to advance once more, and temperatures plummeted, pushing many species, including the mammoths, toward extinction. The cause of this sudden deep freeze has been one of the great unresolved puzzles of Earth science. The controversial explanation proposed by some researchers is a cosmic bombardment. The idea is that a comet entering our atmosphere broke apart into a swarm of fragments that rained fire and devastation across the globe. The impact would have thrown up a shroud of dust and soot, blocking sunlight for years and collapsing the climate system. Now look again at the Vulture stone. In this radical interpretation, the scorpion is not just an animal, it is the constellation Scorpius. The bird is Sagittarius. The circle is the sun positioned among them. The headless man symbolizes the mass death that followed. This celestial arrangement, when run backward through astronomical software, allegedly matches the night sky from the precise moment of this proposed comet strike. If this reading is correct, then the builders of Göbekli Tepe were not just building a temple, they were building a monument to their own near annihilation. They were survivors encoding a traumatic memory into stone, a permanent warning carved for future generations. This theory catapults the site from a local enigma to a global epic. It suggests that civilization, or at least its first stirrings, was not born in a time of plenty, but forged in the desperate crucible of a broken world. The temple becomes a response to trauma, a place to make sense of a cosmic disaster and to plead with the heavens for stability. While mainstream archaeology remains deeply skeptical, citing a lack of conclusive geological evidence for such an impact, the idea itself is profoundly compelling. It adds a layer of apocalyptic urgency to the stones, framing them not just as a place of worship, but as a memorial to a lost world. The true complexity of Göbekli Tepe unfolds when you realize it is not one temple, but many. Spread across the hill are at least 20 distinct enclosures, great stone circles built one after another over many centuries. Archaeologists have labeled them with letters, from Enclosure A to Enclosure D and beyond, each representing a different chapter in this ancient story. The most astonishing revelation comes from the deepest layers. The oldest enclosures, like the monumental Enclosure D, contain the most massive and artistically sophisticated pillars. These are the true giants, masterfully carved and erected with a skill that seems to appear fully formed. Yet as time passed, the new enclosures built on top of them became progressively smaller. The pillars grew less imposing, the carvings less intricate and refined. This is a clear and puzzling pattern of decline. The peak of their architectural and artistic ambition was at the very beginning. The society did not slowly build toward this greatness. It started with it, and then gradually lost the scale or the will to maintain it. This was not a haphazard process. The entire site was a carefully managed sacred landscape. The builders followed a profound ritual of renewal. Before constructing a new circle, they would deliberately and carefully bury the old one. They filled the massive enclosures with earth, stone debris, and animal bones, sealing them as if putting them to sleep. Then, they would build the next generation of temples directly on top of this artificial mound, creating a stratified history of their own beliefs. Each layer is a time capsule, preserving a moment in their spiritual journey. This deliberate burial tells us the site was never abandoned or forgotten. It was actively curated for generations, with each new phase representing an evolving tradition, perhaps a changing understanding of the cosmos or a shift in social power. The layout is a physical timeline, a story of rise and slow fade written not on paper, but in the very earth of the hill itself. The sophistication of these stone pillars is matched only by the simplicity of the tools that created them. Without a single piece of metal, the builders of Göbekli Tepe relied on the most ancient of human technologies, mastered to an extraordinary degree. The ground around the site is littered with the evidence, a carpet of flint chips and discarded tools that reveal their methods. They used heavy stone mauls, essentially rounded river cobbles, to pound and fracture the solid limestone bedrock in the quarries. With nothing but relentless human effort, they would hammer at the stone, perhaps using fire to heat the surface and then dousing it with water to create thermal cracks. Once a block was loosened, they likely employed wooden levers and ropes made of plant fibers to coax it from the earth, but the true marvel lies in the fine details. The intricate foxes, vultures, and serpents were not carved with chisels, but with delicate flint tools called berens. These were small, sharp stone flakes with a precise, chisel-like edge. An artisan would have patiently pecked and scratched at the limestone, defining a serpent's scale or a vulture's feather one tiny impact at a time. This was an act of immense patience, a testament to a skill set honed over a lifetime. Alongside these engraving tools, archaeologists have found thousands of other implements, from scrapers for preparing animal hides to the razor-sharp projectile points used to hunt the very animals depicted on the pillars. Their entire world was built from stone, bone, and wood. This proves a profound point about human potential. A lack of advanced technology is no barrier to monumental achievement when a society is united by a powerful collective vision. Their tools were rudimentary, but their ambition was limitless, demonstrating that the true engine of civilization is not the material in our hands, but the immaterial fire of a shared idea. This powerful collective will, however, required a social structure sophisticated enough to organize and sustain it for generations. The great stone circles were sealed away, but their ideas could not be contained. The revolutionary concepts first tested at Göbekli Tepe began to travel, carried by the very people who had gathered there for generations. We see this legacy etched into later sites like Neolithic, which also features those distinctive T-shaped pillars, though on a smaller, more domestic scale. The monumental becomes integrated into the everyday, a powerful symbol that has lost none of its meaning, only some of its grand scale. This is not a coincidence. It is a clear cultural thread, a direct line from the world's first temple to the villages that followed. The spiritual vocabulary born on that hilltop echoes through time. The obsession with dangerous and powerful animals, the veneration of ancestors, and the very idea of a shared, monumental sacred space all resurface in the foundational myths of later Mesopotamian and Anatolian cultures. Think of the great bull men of Mesopotamian art or the lion goddesses of Anatolia. These are not entirely new inventions, but perhaps distant cultural memories, echoes of a symbolic language first carved into limestone pillars 11,000 years ago. Göbekli Tepe was a grand social and ideological experiment. It was a laboratory where hunter-gatherers discovered the power of large-scale cooperation, of shared symbolism, and of organized ritual. This was a new way of being human, a way to build something far bigger than any single family or clan. When these groups eventually dispersed as their way of life slowly transformed toward settled farming, they carried this blueprint with them. They took the knowledge of how to unite people under a common belief, how to organize labor, and how to create a collective identity. This was the true export of Göbekli Tepe, a social technology more valuable than any tool. The great civilizations of the Fertile Crescent, with their cities, their temples, and their gods, did not emerge from a vacuum. They grew from seeds planted in the soil of a Turkish hilltop, nurtured by the vision of the first temple builders. In this radical light, Göbekli Tepe was not a mysterious dead end. It was the crucible where the very idea of civilization was first forged, its legacy written not just in stone but in the fabric of our world. Uncovering these ancient secrets is a race against time itself. The soft limestone of the pillars, preserved for millennia in their earthen tomb, begins to erode the moment it is exposed to modern air and rainfall. To combat this, a colossal protective canopy now arches over the main excavation areas, a shield of modern engineering defending against the elements. This is just one part of a delicate balancing act that defines archaeology here. Researchers are no longer just diggers with trowels, they are conservators armed with advanced technology. Ground-penetrating radar scans the hill, revealing the ghostly outlines of perhaps 20 more undiscovered enclosures still sleeping underground. Three-dimensional digital models capture every minute detail of the carvings, creating perfect virtual records that will outlast the stone itself. But preservation is not just a battle against nature, it is also a challenge created by the site's own fame. The human desire to stand where our ancestors did, to touch these ancient pillars, brings thousands of visitors, and each footstep and touch carries the risk of gradual, irreversible damage. Deciding where to lay a walkway, how many people to admit each day, and which areas must remain completely off-limits are questions as complex as interpreting the carvings. Every choice is a compromise between sharing this wonder with the world and ensuring it survives for the world yet to come. This makes modern excavation a deeply thoughtful process. The drive to unearth another monumental circle is always tempered by a profound question. Is it better to leave a structure buried and perfectly preserved, or to expose it for our understanding, knowing we are starting its clock of decay? There are no easy answers. The work at Göbekli Tepe has transformed from a thrilling treasure hunt into a long-term guardianship, a careful dance between discovery and protection where patience is the ultimate virtue. The full story of the first temple is still being written, one careful brushstroke at a time. The stones of Göbekli Tepe whisper a tale so profound, it has inevitably spawned a chorus of more fantastical explanations. You will hear claims that this site was built by survivors of the lost continent of Atlantis, or that it stands as irrefutable proof of a hyper-advanced Ice Age civilization, its knowledge lost to a great flood. These stories are compelling, but they are not science. It is essential to draw a clear line between romantic fiction and the evidence unearthed by decades of meticulous archaeology. The material record at the site is unequivocal. Every tool found here is made of stone, bone, or wood. There are no traces of metal, no gears, no mysterious power sources. The carvings are a symbolic language, not a written one. There is zero geological evidence for a sunken continent in the region, and the idea of alien architects is a profound disservice to the ingenuity of our own ancestors. The authentic narrative is not less wondrous for being grounded in reality. It is infinitely more so. The truth is that ordinary humans with nothing but flint tools and shared purpose achieved the extraordinary. This reality challenges a core assumption we often hold, that technological complexity is the only measure of a society's advancement. The builders of Göbekli Tepe demonstrate that social and spiritual complexity can be a powerful force all on its own. They organized hundreds of people, sustained a project across generations, and encoded a cosmic worldview into stone, all without the wheel or metallurgy. This does not require a fantasy of intervention from outside our world. It requires us to recognize the immense potential that was already here within us. The real mystery is not how aliens could have built it, but how humans did, and what that says about the untapped capabilities of our own species when united by a common vision. The full story of this sacred hill is far from complete. After decades of work, archaeologists have only excavated a tiny fraction of the entire complex. The ground-penetrating radar does not lie. Its scans revealing the ghostly outlines of perhaps 20 more monumental enclosures still sleeping beneath the soil. Each one is a sealed time capsule, holding answers to questions we have not even thought to ask. The future of research here is a thrilling prospect, pivoting from the grand circles themselves to the wider world of their creators. The most pressing mystery remains: where did these people actually live? The temporary camps that must have housed the thousands of workers have proven elusive, their traces faint on the landscape. Finding them is now a primary goal, a search that will map the daily lives of the pilgrims who built this marvel. New scientific techniques offer unprecedented windows into their world. Imagine performing a chemical analysis on a stone bowl, detecting the faint residue of a fermented beverage shared during a ritual feast. Consider the possibility of finding human remains and extracting ancient DNA, which could trace the genetic lineages of the builders and reveal where they journeyed from, painting a picture of a vast social network converging on this single point. The tools in the modern archaeologist's kit are becoming as sophisticated as the site itself. LiDAR scans from the air can strip away vegetation to reveal hidden structures across the entire region. Three-dimensional modeling can create perfect digital twins of the pillars, allowing researchers to study every minute detail without risking damage to the soft limestone. The greatest discoveries at Göbekli Tepe are almost certainly still buried. The next trench, the next brushstroke, could uncover a pillar that completely reconfigures our understanding of its symbolic language, or an enclosure that dates even further back, pushing the origins of complex society even deeper into the past. This is not a static relic, but an ongoing narrative. Each season of digging holds the potential to rewrite another chapter of the human story, a story where the next revelation is always just a trowel's depth away. Göbekli Tepe stands as a silent, monumental challenge to our understanding of human progress. Its towering pillars force a humbling realization that the story we have long told ourselves about civilization is incomplete. We believed that society advanced in a straight line from farming to villages to religion. This temple shatters that sequence, revealing a far more complex and fascinating truth. The true catalyst for civilization may not have been the practical need for food, but the profound human need for meaning. It was the power of a shared belief, the ability to collaborate on a grand scale, and the drive to encode that belief in stone that truly forged our world. This was a social and spiritual revolution, one that demonstrates how ideas can be as powerful as any tool or technology in shaping human destiny. This temple that predates civilization is not a relic of a forgotten people, but a breathtaking testament to the ingenuity and spiritual depth of our own ancestors. They were not primitive, they were pioneers of a new way of being human, united by a vision we can only partially decipher. Their legacy reminds us that history is not a simple, linear path, but a complex and surprising tapestry, woven with threads we are still learning to see. As we leave these haunting T-shaped pillars behind, we carry with us an expanded view of our collective past, a past that is far richer, more mysterious, and more inspiring than we ever imagined.